usual, joined here by my colleague Kat Cobell.
Howdy.
Today's Tech Talk later in the day. We'll get a survey after this Tech Talks with some place to fill in some comments. It'd be helpful if you guys let us know the time of day that works best for you. Today's Tech Talks, we're kicking it off. Just a quick rundown on the if key, and as we do every week or every webinar, there's a place for you to type in those questions. Kat's reviewing your questions, and right after I talk a little bit about the if key, floor's open to all those questions about Grammar 2, anything you'd like to talk about. Just remember, try to treat it as though you're sitting at the table here with me. So, you know, we do classes here and we teach people how to use the Grammar 2 software, and it really does super surprise me that nobody ever asked about this if key. To me, it's in a pretty prominent spot, very close to where your fingers spend a lot of time with the at, the pluses, the numbers, especially the please key, and nobody asked about the if key. So I thought we'd kick this off by talking about it a little bit. Their if key, I think, is one of those buttons that actually has 4 presses, 4 different keywords that you run through. I don't remember if any other keys on the desk you can hit 4 times to run through 4 keywords. Do you remember, Kat? Are there any?
A line.
A line? Yeah,
Line's one of them.
The line has 4 presses for 4 different keywords. There may be a couple others. I can't remember everything. So if when you hit this, you get if output, if active, if prog, and then the regular if keyword. So my favorite one is that I use all the time is just if output. What is that doing? That is saying, okay, if output followed by please is looking at all your channels and fixtures in your rig and going to automatically select those anything that's above 0%. So if you have fixtures that are off, like my alpha beams here on the floor, those are not selected at this moment, but everything that's on, the washes, spots, anything that's above 0 gets selected. So it's a great way to do your blackouts. Another thing I use it for is that if you have a big list of fixtures and you can't remember what's on right now, a nice thing is if output, and if you have fixture sort turned on, it sorts all those selected fixtures to the top, so then you can easily see which fixtures are on at the moment. So that feature alone, I think, is very helpful. Now, another situation is that if you're just talking about dimmer, I'm going to select my alpha spots, and I'm going to use my matrix here. I'm going to put the first 4 at 20%, and the next 4 at 60%, and the next 4 at 80%. And I have nothing selected. But if we look here, we see we have various values. If I just want to select the fixtures that I put at 60%, maybe I don't remember which ones those are. I could say if output, followed by at 60, and you'll notice it actually selects the fixtures that are at 60%. Now let's say we do a little range as well. Take this one step further. What if those fixtures were at 58 through 62%? Well, if I said if output at 60, selects nothing because there's nothing at 60%. But I could say if output at 55 through 65, and it'll select anything within that range. Same as if output 50 through 100. If I want to select anything that's above 50%, I can say if output at 50 through 100. Why did that not work? If output at 50 through 100. We'll try this again. There we go. Okay, only the stuff that's above 100. So this stuff that's at 20% didn't get selected. Also, this is good to point out that it's talking about any dimmer value. So these 201s, these alpha washes are being controlled by my executor, where other stuff is in my programmer. It doesn't differentiate. It just says anything at this criteria. Okay, that's really handy when it just comes to dealing with dimmer. Now you may notice what I've got going on here. I've got some alpha washes pointed and spots pointed on singer, alpha washes and spots pointed on singer, guitar, keyboard on stage left. And I have some presets here. Let's say I want to select all the fixtures that are on that singer because the singer is not singing anymore and I need to turn the lights off. Well, rather than having to worry about IDs, I don't really like IDs. I like to use the objects that I've created. I can say if output singer. And we put those at 0, and now the lights on the singer are off. So it doesn't matter that I've got a mixture of washes and spots. All I have to do is reference the preset that I created. And when I say if output preset, it selects the washes, spots, and anything else that's focused on that singer or utilizing that preset. Same goes with colors. You see, I have a lot of stuff in the rig that's yellow, and maybe that was the wrong color. Designer really wants it to be green. I could say if output yellow, and then I just tap on green, and now it turns green. Okay, very handy. It's the concept of the if key is to break you away from having to worry about locations and setting up a ton of groups and worrying about fixture IDs. It's so the designer can talk to you based on what he sees. When a designer says, hey, I don't want the lights on the keyboard anymore, you don't have to worry about those fixture IDs. You just say, oh, it's output keyword. Okay, let me turn those off for you. Oh, that stuff that's in yellow should be in green. I could say if output yellow and turn it to green. So it's a way for your designer to talk to you based on what they see, and no one has to worry about fixture IDs or locations. Okay. Another thing that I see happen often is you get some random stuff like this, and you make it strobe, and then you grab this fixture and you put it on the drums, and now you have this fixture sheet with active information that's all over the place, but you don't know what fixtures are active. And something you might want to check before you do a store is what current fixtures have active information. That's where that second press of if, where you get the if active keyword. I can say if active please. It selects all fixtures that have active information associated with them. Okay. Now you guys should remember 2 times clear deactivates the fixtures. So I have red text here. That means it's in the programmer, but it's not active. Red text means programmer's controlling it versus an executor versus a default. So gray is default. Cyan is being controlled by an executor, red text is being controlled by the programmer, and maybe these lights here are in their home position at full. The thing that arises here is that I want to know everything that's being controlled by the programmer regardless of whether it has active information or not. And that's where that third press of the if key, where you get the if prog keyword, comes into play. When I say if prog please, it also selects those fixtures that have red text, even though they don't have any active information associated with them. Active information automatically is red text. So if you've never heard that before, red text means programmers controlling it, red background means it's active. And obviously automatically red background means that it's in the programmer, so it does have red text. Okay, so great ways to select your fixtures based on what's going on in your system. Now, another situation that arises is this fourth press. What is this if keyword? Well, I have a tendency to refer to it as the if only keyword because it fits into the phrase better. So you notice we have some alpha washes in our rig here and some alpha spots. I want to select the alpha spots, which is my backlight. I want to select just the yellow spots and turn them green. So I showed you how to select the yellow, right? I can say if output yellow. But what that does is it selects my spots and my washes. However, I only want the spot fixtures. So with the current selection, I only want the spot fixtures, so I hit my if key 4 times. I get that if keyword. basically stands for if only alpha spots, and now I've filtered my selection down to just the spots, and I turn those green. Okay, so that's like the if only keyword. If you're just working in your groups pool, you can get really creative with your groups. You'll notice here I have my stage right movers group, and I have alpha spots, beams, and washes. Well, rather than having to make a stage right washes, a stage right spots, and a stage right washes, I just need to make stage right, stage left, and then the groups for the different types of lights, because I can say stage left, using that if keyword, only if alpha washes. And now I've selected the stage left alpha washes, but I have not selected the stage left spots. So that's very handy, getting very creative about your groups pool arrangement. One of those ones in our show here, our Learning the Ropes show, is where we've creatively set up groups for our conventionals. So these are all the conventionals on stage location 1, all the conventionals on location 2. Then it's all the conventionals on the back blue, the high side green. If I just want the high side green on stage location 3, I'll say stage location 3, and then say only if high side green. And if I jump to my dimmers, you'll notice it's just one dimmer is high side green. Whereas if I jump back here and I choose stage location 3, it's actually multiple lights. But once again, to repeat that, only if high side green gets me down to the one fixture that's actually the high side green focused on stage location 3. So this if key can be very powerful. If you don't feel like having to hit this if key all the time, very easy macro you can create. Actually, I think it probably is predefined. I was doing some testing earlier. I deleted my predefined list, so don't mind me. We'll just make it from scratch. If at. Okay. This is the if keyword followed by the at symbol, which says wait for more input. So when if I label this macro if, when I hit if, it puts if in the command line and waits for more input. So instead of me having to hit my if key multiple times, I can say, hey, reds. Oops, I lost my groups here. So I selected all the, what do we do here? We say if output, red, only if spots, make them green or orange. Okay, so those are 4 levels of if. There are probably even more things you can do with if, but I would recommend that as a great starting place. And if you ever need help, you say help if output. It jumps to the help manual page about if output object list, if output at value list. Hey, look, you can even if output at fade level. So if you want to grab everything that has a fade, an individual fade time of 3 seconds, you can do that here. By the way, next week's one of next week's Tech Talks is about value layer, fade layer, delay layer, effect layer. So we'll talk more about that fade layer. If you want help with regular if, you say help if. And it's kind of an only if thing. That keyword also plays into the clone keyword. Cool. Hopefully that really enlightens you to using if, and I think you should use it all the time for sure. So let's see, what's all these questions? Everybody's got questions. Let's get them answered.
How can I use if output to select my fixtures that are currently sitting at 0, like those beams there?
You can't. But what you do is you set up a nice little macro that selects everything that's not at 0 and then inverts your selection. If you've never seen the invert keyword before, guess what? We can look it up. Help, invert. Invert is a function used to invert the selection status of fixtures. So if I have these selected and I say invert, it selects everything that wasn't selected and deselects what's currently selected. So if I want to select everything at 0, I say if output, which selects everything that's on, and then I say invert, and now I've selected everything that's off. So I would normally say put that in a macro. It's very simple. If output followed by invert, and now you have one macro that basically selects everything at 0. Magic.
Macros are magic. And of course, let us remind you that questions don't actually have to be about what we're talking about. This is your time to just sit here and chat with us and ask whatever you need to, such as this next question, which we've actually seen a lot come through the past couple months with the new version, which is you can't find that connect button in 3D. How do I connect my 3D now in version 3.125?
Oh, fancy question. So we're enhancing the philosophy. So this removal of the connect button in MA3D was because it doesn't really fit in with the philosophy of the system. We work on a distributed processing architecture where it's not that we have separate softwares per se. It's not like, oh, we have Grandma 2 and then we have this separate thing that's MA3D. No, they're just all part of one system. Same with the VPU. So the belief is that all management must come from your controller. So when you're connecting your 3D, now you manage it all from your MANet control and your MANet configuration windows that are part of your controller. You know, MA3D is not really a standalone program. There's a few things that work standalone, but that's why that button was taken out. Some people disagree, some people agree. It's just the philosophy of the system. So you go to MA network configuration. You'd have 3D here. You would add present. Nothing shows up because I'm not communicating with 3D. If you find yourself in that situation, you have a network problem. Manually adding it is not going to fix your problem. But just for demo purposes, we would add present, would hopefully show up here with a real IP address, toggle session member to yes, and 3D will join. I actually have the 3D software, so we can see what happens here. I don't remember if I have it set to loopback or not. Yeah, there it is. All right, session member yes. So you do all your management from MA network configuration here. And oh, it's not going to join. Oh, because I'm standalone. Yes. You must be master of the session in order to get connectivity here. Okay, hopefully that clears it up. All right, I know people are watching. You must all have questions that you want answered.
Somebody has to have a question about this. Nobody has all the answers. Come on. Well, we're going back to this discussion that we were having on the if key here. You had some information that was activated. You had some information that was just sitting in your programmer. Well, if I have that information just sitting in my programmer, how do I reactivate it?
God, we don't have a real function that does that easily per attribute. Do you have a better idea, Kat?
No.
So, I'll show you a couple things. Reactivating deactive information is something that's on our wish list, but right now it requires a little finesse. So I will do something like that and toggle. So hopefully you guys have seen this before. If you use the toggle function of these, you can reactivate the information. So let's say clear to deselect if prog. What that does is select anything with red text. Okay. Now there's handy masks. If you guys have never used masks, I really like them. One of the masks I have is active only. And that shows me attributes that have active information as well as what's currently selected. one of the masks that aren't up here, I'm going to right click on this alpha spots one, and we're going to load from the programmer only mask. So what that does is it shows me just the stuff with red text. So you have to get creative here, where for these two, you could just toggle dimmer. For this one, if you just want to activate RGB, come over here and we'd want to on the feature. So activating something is known as on. So I'll say on mix color, which is the feature button, and it takes the feature, the attributes of the feature, and activates those for my current selected fixture. So for 102, if I wanted to activate mix color, I'd say on this. For 106, if I wanted to activate all things color, I'd say on color, and it does color 1, CTO, etc. If I want to on position, I say on position. These on and off buttons are a way to kind of manage your data. If you don't want position in your programmer anymore, if you just want to kick it out, same concept as 3 times clear, but just for pan, I would say off position, and it gets rid of it. So a one foul swoop button that takes all red text and activates it, not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
I like the long questions.
Yeah, sorry, we have to read these out here.
One of the questions here is there a way to decrease saturation via macro when the light is RGBW? Unfortunately, if I look at, we have 4 fixtures here that are LEDs. Let's go here, RGB. Oh, let's sort those to the top. The color engine is based on an additive mixing color engine, so it can calculate up to 16 colors all at once. And when you're in the special dialog box, this is utilizing the algorithm to decide what all the colors do. Unfortunately, if you do something like link encoder, so you have a hue encoder, this is not a command line function because it's not in the core. It's kind of it's through the interface, whereas the only thing that exists in the command line are the actual attributes, which are RGB based, no matter whether you're using a CMY or RGB fixture. And same thing in this mode, this hue fader. So unfortunately, no way to access that hue right now. We do have that on the wish list, but since it's not a keyword, can't do it via command line.
All right. We have an effect question, and it's about the effect special dialog, and how do you go about manipulating those vertical wheels that are in your effect special dialog? Do you have any tips and tricks for that?
With finesse.
With finesse, eh?
I guess you're talking about this effect special dialog box.
Yeah, right there. How do you manipulate those so that your values are
it's not going to work so well with on PC because of my mouse, but yeah, I tend to just use the encoders because they're up here, so it just works a little better. The other thing is I put my finger on and just slowly move it. Unfortunately, it's like a accelerated type of weird kind of touchscreen to input algorithm that monitors the acceleration of your finger. So practice makes perfect is all I can say, but I'm more of a fan of typing in the start value I want, and then I just use the encoders.
how do you handle your effects drifting from their tempo? Is this something that you know about or know how to handle?
I've heard people tell me this before, and we've done our own timer testing and can't find a problem, which I'm sure is your favorite answer of all time. It's hard for us, as you know, to fix things when we can't repeat those things. So if you have a show file and you can easily repeat it with a stopwatch, send over those steps to support@actlighting.com and we get those, hopefully can repeat it ourselves, and then we submit it to get fixed. The only thing I could suggest is if we have, you link a Speedmaster to your effect. So if where's dimmer sign, for example, I'd use a speed group. So speed 1, for example, and then I'd have an executor somewhere, function special masters, do Speedmaster 1, and now I have a handle that I can slowly move and adjust to speed it up a little bit or slow it down if you're seeing your tempo drifting. It's always the question of like, well, is it Pro Tools' fault? Is the band not quite playing at 60 and they're playing at 59, or is there the bug in the software? So, as I said, email support@actlighting if you have a way to reproduce it, and we will certainly get it fixed.
Cool. Hey, this is a good one. How should you handle MA on PC on a Mac?
Well, we use Parallels. It's an article that I haven't written. Now, keep in mind, Parallels in VMware, virtual machines, you should not use in show-critical applications, okay? We use it in software testing because Parallels allows us to keep what is known as a snapshot. So we can install all the stupidest stuff on the planet in our Windows environment for testing purposes, and then when we break Windows, we can snapshot back to a good place. All day long. I like Macs because for business operations, things are just integrated, and because of the fact that I can run a virtual machine on a Mac, that's why we do it. But for real show applications, we reboot our Macs into Boot Camp, or we get a dedicated machine. It's a really funny topic I've seen on PC users where they just have their normal laptop that they're surfing the internet on all day and using Vectorworks and watching videos, etc., are what they use for their live shows. And I'm just like mind blown, because when you use a Gremma 2, you're buying a purpose-built piece of hardware. Therefore, in my opinion, if you have an on-PC wing, spend $1,000 or $1,200 for a purpose-built computer to run your shows. But for testing things, you can use Parallels. I think it's fine. Now, what's missing is you have to go through a lot of work to get all the settings right. And if you've ever been to our support tab, hopefully in the next 6 months, we will create a bulletin on how to optimize parallel settings for running MA software on your Mac for your kind of pre-programming and testing use. Just not there yet. And remember, if you want to get notified of webinars, if you go to actlighting.com/webinars, you can sign up for webinars as well as technical bulletins. So when we post more bulletins on that site, we send an email out that says, hey, there's new stuff. So when that email about Parallels comes out, you can get notified by checking this box and that box. Okay. Somebody was asking about status copy when you copy queues. So if I say copy Q1 at Q2, this will be our last question, by the way, because we reached the end of our webinar. Next week, our webinars, we're doing 45 minutes to allow a little more time for questions. So hopefully that helps. Choose copy method says status. The intent there is that everything that is required to reproduce that Q1 will get copied into Q2. Hopefully you use it. If for some reason you do that, it doesn't appear the same. As usual, double check that it happens every time that you try it, and send that show file support@acolyting.com with those steps so that we can see it, and then we can dive into what the root cause is, whether it's explainable and expected, or if there's a bug. All right. Hey guys, thank you for joining the webinar today. Fill out those survey fields with, especially that field where you can type in anything you want, because we're definitely very keen to hear your feedback on these, on whether we should do them more often or less often, whether we should do them in the morning or in the evening, whether the topics are good, what we could do differently. We'd definitely love to hear, and sign up for those webinars next week. I think the 2 topics I said already forgot them. What are the topics?
We're talking about priority, and we'll be talking about layers.
Yes, that's right. The other one was layers I mentioned. The other one we're talking about priority, LTP, low TP, HTTP, and super. All right. Hey, it's Friday. Have a good weekend.